Hey everybody, Charlie here. Welcome to episode 101 of Conquering Kerbal Space Program. Today, we're going to Eve, but before we can go to Eve, we have some unfinished business to take care of in the administration building. Let's go ahead and check it out. And as you guys can see, we have the unmanned strategy Duna probes. And in order to complete this and move on to a different strategy, we have to be landed on 3 different biomes of Duna. We've got a probe on the surface, but that's only on 1 biome. We're gonna need to make sure we get something landed on 2 different biomes before we can move on to what the strategy I really want, and that is Eve probes, which is the same strategy as Duna probes, except it's on Eve. Now, the reason I need to move from one to the other is twofold. One, with Duna probes active, I get 80% less funds to other bodies. Don't want to do that since I'm going to Eve. But the other thing is, if I don't complete this now and I want to get Eve probes later, I won't be able to because I'll already have sent a craft to Eve. So we're going to need to go to Duna and wrap that up. If we take a look at the biome map right here, this is what we're looking at right here. We're currently sitting here, and this is the northern basin. You can see the biome is listed underneath, right down here when I mouse over top of it. So this is the northern basin. This over here is the lowlands. We got the midlands right here, and then the highlands is over here. We also have the western canyon, which is this pink area here on the map. And then if we put our mouse just in the right spot, we can get the eastern canyons right there. So we can get a lot of different biomes with this probe. We just have to get it there. And with the signal delay being over a minute now, is not really going to be that easy to drive. This was my worry before. It's going to be difficult to get down here. But one of you guys reminded me of a tool. I knew it existed, but I just didn't think of it. I was thinking I needed MechJeb to do this, and I was completely wrong. One of you guys pointed out the flight computer actually has a probe mode. So this is the normal mode we normally use through this when we're doing unmanned flights and stuff. This is what you guys are familiar with seeing. But if we click this tiny little arrow right here, we get unmanned. We get basically a rover tool, which is really nice. I don't know exactly how to use it, so we're gonna find out. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this thing to travel with a controlled speed to each of these different biomes. And the highlands is probably going to be the one that's the hardest to reach. This is also lowlands here as well as this, but it's easier for me, I think, if I head this direction to get the lowlands, because once I get the highlands, it's all downhill from there, right? So I just need to get to the highlands first. That's going to be the hardest one to reach, so that's the one I'm going to try and go for first. But on the way there, we're going to hit the midlands. If we can reach the highlands, awesome. If it's looking like it's too steep and we can't do it, then I'll head this way around and we'll head over here to the lowlands. This little marker here is where I intended to land because it seems like that's the easiest to get to all these different biomes, but you know, it just wasn't meant to be. You can't be that precise when you're landing on a planet unmanned like that. So okay, let's go ahead and do this with the probe. We're gonna set my destination, and it looks to me like this destination right here is if we're taking a look at this down here, right? I'm looking at this saying 12 degrees, 6 minutes, 27 seconds. I'm seeing like 76 degrees, 39 minutes, 5.77 seconds on west. So I'm thinking if I just take 12.11 and negative 76.65, I'll probably get there. So let's try that, 12.11 and negative 76.65. Do I want to do, which mode do I want to do here? I'm not sure which one is the best here. I think the wheels probably need to be dialed back. I don't think they need to be quite that powerful. So we'll probably dial those back. But for lat, I'm thinking 12.11, and for long, what was it? It was negative 76.7. So negative 76.77. For the speed, I want to keep controlled at about 4 meters per second. If you could do that, that would be swell. And I'm not sure how to actually get that going. Do I just hit start on that? I guess I do. So if I'm correct on this, and I'm not entirely sure I am, we'll hopefully see this thing hit and move on its own and head towards that destination at 4 meters per second. So let's just speed up time really quick here. And just as expected, the probe does start to move. This tool is actually pretty intuitive. It's pretty close to what MechJeb would do for me, but I kind of like how it sort of synchronizes really well with this ScanSat thing, because ScanSat can give me the exact coordinates I need, and then I could just pop it in the lat and long fields here. It's pretty cool. I probably could have had this probe going a little bit faster than 4 meters per second, but I'm a little bit... With a 67-second delay, I'm just a little bit scared of it tumbling over and getting destroyed. So I figured I might as well just let the thing go and let it go and do its thing and just watch it, and I can go off and do work for the day or something and just let it go. As we progress into the Midlands, I'm able to now run experiments. These experiments can be ran while the probe is moving. I did have to stop the probe twice before I finally got to the Highlands, and that's just to recharge the battery, because these little solar panels, they don't charge fast enough to actually keep it up while we're moving. I am going to take all the experiments while we're moving in the Midlands, but I'm not going to transmit them. I'm going to wait until we're in the Highlands to transmit them. Reason being is I can simply leave the probe in place to charge its batteries and just transmit all the experiments while I'm sitting there in the Highlands, then rerun all the experiments in the Highlands, and then transmit those. So I ended up getting a ton of science for this mission. It was fantastic, especially since the Duna probe's strategy was still active during the course of this. So that was pretty fantastic. And as we arrive in the Highlands, the mission, the strategy is kind of complete. We can go off and do Eve right now. I do plan to head over towards this pink area here on the map where it is the Western Canyon. And there's this tiny little piece that's right next to the lowlands. It's kind of between the lowlands and the Western Canyon. That's called the Eastern Canyon. Sometimes maps, sometimes planets in Kerbal Space Program, their biomes will sort of stick out in weird places where they don't belong. And the Eastern Canyon just happens to be one of those over there. I will eventually move this probe over there to get those things, but I don't need to do that right now. Right now, all I need to do is, well, leave it here and then go back to the KSC and get the strategy I want. So let's go. All right, back at the KSC, you guys can see here that the administration building, the Duna probes thing is gone. We've already done it now, so no penalties for not doing it. We can now do the Eve probes if we want to, and we're gonna be sending things to Eve. We get plus 400% funds to milestone gains for Eve, and negative 80% funds to milestone gains for other bodies. The thing is though, we're sending things to Eve, and we can't do this after we send it because you have to have something not en route to Eve. So once I accept this, now we'll get the same benefits of going to Duna on Eve. But we also get the same penalties as going everywhere else. Not a big deal though, because that's where we're going. I can also take Probe Frenzy again if I want to, because I'm not sending manned craft out anymore. So cost to launch crewed vessels increased by 100%. Yep, but everything else for unmanned stuff is now great again. So let's go ahead and pay for that and get Probe Frenzy 3 back in. And that's pretty much it. So now let's plan on going to Eve. I'm going to send pretty much the same thing that I sent to Duna. I'm going to send that same thing to Eve, except I'm hoping to build the Eve craft on the surface of Minmus so that there's no cost. We're going to save all of our money, and I'm hoping that that's the case. So let's go to Minmus and see what the progress is on material kits. Actually, you know what? Before we do that though, we need to see what the material kit's cost is going to be for launching something to Eve, or launching the craft that we're going to build to Eve. So we'll go to the VAB first, check out the cost for things, and then see what we need on Minmus. All right, guys, so this is what I ended up sending to Duna, right? This is a nice little package delivery vessel, if you will, that has a whole bunch of different satellites on it. We can launch them one at a time. There's a whole bunch of science experiments on there, lots of solar panels, etc. Solar panels are going to be even more effective in Eve than they are in Duna because of the proximity to the sun. So I'm not going to change any configurations there. I may be able to shave a little bit of cost by just maybe going, I don't know, like 4x on this instead of 6. But I'm going to leave it exactly the way it is because I just don't feel like changing it. You know, I know that it works. This costs $315,000 to make. I would also have to take and get an actual launch delivery stage to get it up to space initially too. And I don't have to do that as long as I'm building it on the surface of Minmus. To build it on Minmus, and this is all the numbers say, to build this on Minmus, all I need are 13,480 material kits and 891 specialized parts. I'm thinking that's pretty easy to get on Minmus right now. So what I'm thinking of doing here is we're going to amend this craft just a little bit. I'm going to drop it down lower, hopefully. Come on, thank you. Drop it down a little bit lower here. And I want to build it so that it builds with launch clamps. I'm not sure how that works. I've never built anything with launch clamps, like remotely on the surface or anything. I mean, the only thing I've ever built on the surface with material kits are the things that you guys have seen in videos. So I haven't done anything like that. So let's hope that works out okay, because I'm going to need it. I don't want it to sit on just this engine. So I'm going to take and go to structural, and going to take these little stability enhancers here. And we're going to go 2 times, and I'm just going to have this be launched about like that. And I'm hoping that doesn't add a whole lot, right? It added very little material kits cost, and it bumped us slightly over 900 for specialized parts. But I'm hoping that that build on the surface of Minmus means we just get to launch it up. As far as Delta V goes, we have more than enough. The numbers that you see up here on Kerbal Engineer Redux are for atmospheric flight. At least they were. I must have clicked it before starting to record this. These were for atmospheric flight. So we're going to end up with like an insane amount of Delta V over what we need. All right, guys, back on the Minmus base. And you can see that our reserve material kits is already 21,000. And the specialized parts is 3,379. So we already have enough to build this thing. So I think we just grab our engineer. We start planting some stakes. We can probably launch this thing from maybe way over here just to kind of keep it away from the base when it gets built. We can launch it into space kind of whenever we want to at this point. So I don't see any reason why I don't just do that right now. All right, everybody. So 2 days later, these guys are done building this rocket, and we're ready to finalize the build. So let's go ahead and hit this button. Yep. Let's go ahead and focus the camera down here really quick so I can see how that happened. Yeah, looks pretty good. Launch clamps have these little tiny concrete bases on them. Nice. And the engine is just barely above the ground. Perfect. Oh, it looks so good. And it's ready to go too. Now, we're going to need to put fuel in this too, because I think these tanks, they come empty. So we're going to need to transfer fuel to them. Now, I think this is in range for us to just do that remotely, I think. So local logistics, and we have the SAT delivery here and the base here, and we have all this fuel. We can just transfer it all right into that craft. So everything that's able to be filled up, we'll go ahead and tell it to fill it up. And now we should see that these tanks are all full, including the satellites, hopefully. Let's find out. Yep. All those are full too. Perfect. And reserve power is something we can transfer in there as well, which I think why not. So there we go. We'll go ahead and put all the power in there too. And yeah, it's powered on. It's ready to go. Pretty awesome little system here, USI Colony. So we don't need to launch this until about 38 days from now. So we could just imagine for a moment, you know, that the Kerbals are finalizing their build and they're going to do their final system checks for the next month or so. And we'll just go ahead and leave them like this until we're a little bit closer to launch. Now, I am planning to build the other 2 crafts on Minmus' surface to go off to Eve, but before we can do that, our Earlham SSTO actually has a correction burn to make early on in its flight. So we're gonna go head off and do that. Now, the purpose for this burn is to bring our approach in to rendezvous with one of Earlham's satellites, Wall. We'll do this for 2 reasons. The first is because that's an extra body and that means more science, but the second reason is because we can use Wall's gravity to slow us down just a little bit and also whip us around to a closer approach to Earlham, and ultimately leading to an easier capture burn later. The burn ultimately goes off without a hitch, and that's great, but there is something that I'm quite concerned about happening with this craft right now. And it's not just this craft, it's all of the crafts that I'm interacting with within this whole entire video. And that is that the flight computer is not remembering the instructions that I give it. And what I mean by that is, you might notice the flight computer does not have the instructions to wake up the Kerbals that are going to be frozen on their way to Earlham. That instruction is no longer in here. Later on in the video, when we launch the crafts that we're building on Minmus to go to Eve, I also have similar problems there. The flight computer is refusing to remember the instructions I'm giving it, even if I just switched from that craft. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. My Kerbals need to wake up at the proper time when they reach their destination, of course. They will not have a signal before we get there. And so if I don't have the flight computer paying attention and remembering things, I might have to just cheat that, because that instruction is clearly in there and it's not remembering it, and that's a big problem potentially. So now that that burn is out of the way, we're gonna go back to Minmus now, and this time we're gonna want to build the Pioneer module that's gonna be sent to Eve. So I start to break things down on the base to see if I can break it down enough stuff to make the Pioneer module. Turns out there's no chance of that ever happening. So I'm gonna have to send more material kits down to the surface, and it's okay because I have plenty of time to do that. It only takes 8 days to reach Minmus. We have more than that to where we have to launch it, and it actually only takes roughly 2.5 days to build the last craft. And I think this one here is actually a little bit easier to build, so it shouldn't even take that many days. This vessel is going to land down on the surface, and at that point, I'm going to go ahead and transfer all of that stuff using planetary logistics into the Minmus base. But once that's taken care of, I no longer need this craft anymore. I'm just going to have Sean go out there and dismantle this whole thing now too. All right, with that mission objective taken care of, we now have sufficient supply to go ahead and create the next craft. Now, I can't actually build the next craft where it's supposed to go because there's currently a craft sitting there. So let's get that craft out of our way by launching it into orbit right now. Cool, now that thing's in orbit, let's go ahead and get the finalized build for the Pioneer module on the surface. And the Pioneer module ends up building on the other side of the station, and that's because I actually have another survey stake over there. I must have selected the other stake and just didn't realize it, so it's not really that big of a problem. We'll just launch it up there anyway. We're just gonna have to make sure we don't hit the solar panels, which is probably gonna be pretty easy. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna queue up the third craft that's gonna be built on the surface of Minmus, and this one is identical to the one that I just built, which is the Pioneer module. The only difference between this one and the Pioneer module is that it's actually logistics. However, I'm looking at my supplies here, and I'm actually just short on both material kits and specialized parts to make this happen. However, I'm gonna let this thing keep going. I'm gonna let it build, and let's just let it go. And the thing is, I'm hoping that I'm actually going to generate enough resources during the course of the build to offset the difference, because it's very close. It will eventually turn out to be good for material kits because we are producing a lot of them, but I forgot to switch my Tundra manufacturing facility to actually manufacture specialized parts. All three of the sort of bays that are inside that module are working on material kits exclusively. So I'm gonna turn out to be 34 specialized parts short on that, and I'm gonna have to send more up. The same rules we did with the satellite module apply to this one, except this time we're only gonna put fuel in, and then we're gonna put supplies into this tank. This module has a supply tank, and I'm hoping to start Kerbals out on a good foot, if you will, by giving them a good sufficient amount of supplies so that they can last quite a while on the surface of Eve before they have to worry about that kind of thing. This will hopefully give them adequate time to set up the logistics necessary to create supplies themselves. So I'm happy with that, but I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm gonna need to get specialized parts to the surface as fast as possible. So let's go to the VAB and let's get that prepared. Okay guys, this is the vessel that I've been using to send material kits to Minmus. It's a pretty simple build. I think you guys have seen this before. I'm just gonna launch this from the surface, but what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add an additional tank of specialized parts to this. It's gonna increase the cost, but it's also gonna help me in that I won't need them for a very long time. I'm hoping anyway. I'm gonna send this thing up from the launch pad, and we're gonna get this thing into orbit. I had a terrible launch trajectory this time, like it was horrible. And I've also noticed that adding the additional weight to the craft has dramatically reduced how much Delta V I have. I still had enough to get to Minmus, but it was a lot closer than I was comfortable with. And it's also unfortunate because it would have been really good to have spare fuel, since I was actually short on fuel to fuel up the third vehicle later on. So I had to wait around a little extra time, but it's actually a good thing that I had to wait around extra time, because I would end up noticing something very important. Material kits are in. Okay, I just need liquid fuel now. But I just noticed another problem. It's the only reason I'm like, you know, turning on my microphone right now. I noticed another problem, and it's kind of a, well, I think we could solve it, but it's one of those things where it's like, I can't believe I forgot this. And it is, this thing does not have any antennas on it. The planetary one, the Pioneer module, has 2 Communitron 32s on there. I have 2 on there for redundancy in case one burns up in re-entry. But this one has none. I think what happened is I have the same rocket like model, you know, to send to Eve. I just switched the module and I never put an antenna attached to it this time. So this has no way to communicate with it as soon as I assume that there's a built-in antenna in here or something. I can probably communicate for a little while. But, I mean, there's no way I can communicate once I bet, like, you know, 5,000 meters away or something. So, I'm gonna need an antenna on this thing. And I gotta, like, cycle through these different things. I think I have a solution to this. I just have to figure out how many antennas I have available. Because I think there's a few antennas around the base on different modules and stuff. And we might be able to just take one off and stick it on this. So, let's EVA here. Also, let me double check really quick and make sure that I'm actually making fuel, because I need liquid fuel in this thing. Come on, right here. Are we actually making fuel right now? No, start liquid fuel. Okay, we're making fuel now. That's good. Hopefully we'll have enough in like a day or two to get some stuff in there. Now I need to go to Shane. Here he is. All right, come on ahead and drop down. Do your weird creative drop down. This is kind of a really strange, I mean, it's working, but it's just really, it's not working very well. I can get in, but I have to be very careful when I get in. Otherwise I go flipping around like I did last time. All right, so we need to look for antennas. I'm not sure. And the frame rates are really nice on the base now. Ever since installing this new CPU, frame rates are really nice. I have at least 10 FPS more than I had before, minimum. Maybe even better. It might even be close to real time, actually. You can see the clock up here, seconds that are ticking by. It's pretty close to real time. Anyway, we're looking at... This doesn't have any antennas. I thought it did. I know there's one over here, because I put it there. Like this was the primary module that was meant for communications. I know that this has it, but I don't want to take this one. 2 reasons. 1, because it might be the only one on the base at the moment, because it's the only one I know of right now. But 2, it's a Communitron 16, not a 32, because it didn't need to be a 32 at the time. So I'd rather have a 32 for the whole interplanetary thing. So I'm really hoping I can find one. Maybe there's one on top of the solar panel thing. Ooh, don't bump it though. Just stay away. But look, stay away. Also open your inventory so you don't have to do it later. Oh, that's a problem. Yep, don't do that. Dragging things is going to be a problem because it's going to make me move around. So any antenna up here? It seems like something I would put an antenna on, but I don't think so. Don't think I did. No, doesn't look like I did. Maybe closer to the base. It's a lot of lights, which is kind of nice. I don't think I have those lights on. I also have all the fuel cells turned off right now, so that we can get maximum production on liquid fuel storage and get fuel into that thing as soon as possible. Because that thing needs to launch now. We're 7 days from the window, and it's going to take 8 days or 7 days or so, like that, pretty much, to reach Kerbin from Minmus, and we're gonna basically slingshot ourselves around Kerbin to get ourselves a really cool transfer. but it's going to take 7 days or so to get there. So it kind of needs to launch now so that it hits the launch window at the right time. I don't have any antennas on that. What about this thing over here? Oh, wait. Yeah, there's one right here. Okay. Whew. All right, we're going to take this one, which is going to require me to get close to this thing. Oh, there's not a whole lot to stand on. I wonder if this is out of range. Because I don't want to get up here because I might bump into these things. But if I can stand right here... Actually, these are ladders. These should be extended because they look cool. Heck yeah, man. They look really cool. I like the little red lights on them. Let's get that one extended too. If I stand on top of this, is this close enough to reach that? I don't think it is. I don't even think I can see it. Stand right there, don't move. I'm pretty sure that's out of my grabbing range, but let me just try. Too far, yeah. Damn. Okay, so what I'm gonna have to do, I guess, is come back to... I think what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna retract the radiators so I don't hurt them. At least so that I can hopefully not hurt them. And then we'll try and grab this thing while we're closer to it. And then we'll grab it like this, hopefully. There. And this is the tricky part, like getting it on this. Where do we want to put this thing? I think, oh, I need to equip this. Equip the wrench. I think we are gonna just, I think I could just grab right here. I don't see a problem with that, as long as I can grab it. This thing is on launch clamps, so I should be able to bump into this without any risk of tipping it over. As long as I don't hit it too hard and, you know, break something else. Got it. Alright, so now we should be able to grab this and attach it somewhere. Somewhere where it makes sense. It actually is rotating as it goes around the part too, which is kind of nice. So what about like right here? This is probably a good spot. Ho ho ho! We got it! But is it in the way of the solar panel? That's a good question. Is the solar panel going to hit it when it rotates? Nope, we are good on that. Nice. Okay, retract that. Sweet. It works. Now let's get away from it so we don't hurt it. I want to build all my jewel crafts, especially the satellite stuff. Anything that's big tech. Because the tech stuff, it doesn't take that many material kits to make it, but it's really expensive as a part when you build it and put it on a craft. So you can offset your costs a lot by, like, if it's a craft that's just kind of like heavy, but there's not a whole lot of tech on it, you could launch it from Kerbin probably just as well as you could, you know, launch material kits up here. Because material kits themselves are pretty expensive to buy. But like the satellite network thing, that was like a $700,000 craft. If that's just that part, not even the staging to get it up into orbit in the first place, it was like $700,000, but it only cost me like 14,000 material kits, you know? So it's really easy to send that up. Of course, sending 14,000 material kits up to here would also cost like 600 grand. So, I mean, it's still about equal, but if you can manufacture the material kits, then you're good. And that's what we've been doing. All right, let's slow down the time acceleration. We're good. Stop, stop, stop. Okay, so we have everything now, and everything's good here. I do want to verify that this is running. It says it's consuming energy, and it's connected, so I'm gonna say it's working. Material kits' storage is filled up, so we'll have 4,500 to start with when we get there. We're gonna have to send specialized parts, but you don't need as many specialized parts. So you can send like 1 tank of specialized parts, and it's usually pretty good for manufacturing like 3 tanks worth of material kits. And we're gonna go ahead and launch this. Now you'll notice that we're facing the ground, and that's because by default we're controlling from this module. But I want to control from this because this is facing upwards in the right direction. So control from here, and that's how we're controlling these. Because these are upside down actually. If you were at the brainstorming live streams, you saw this already. You could see that these, you saw me build this, which is a really easy build, so I didn't bother with it, but it was mostly just a talking stream, a chat stream. But yeah, these are upside down, and we're gonna enter the atmosphere with these inflatable heat shields, which are huge and awesome. But the module's upside down, so I had to put a probe core on there that was kind of the right form factor. It's more expensive that way, but whatever. It is what it is. It'll be fine. Okay, SAS on. Thrusters, let's say maybe like, I don't know, this much. They don't really need to be super high for the thrust to weight here. And go. I guess they do. Okay. Also, there's this other problem. I don't know if anyone else gets this problem, but like every time I try to turn the vessel, it cuts my engine. Like if I just tap the D key right now to go right, it's like cutting my engine every time I try to turn. It does eventually kick it back on, but that initial press of the D key, it shuts my engine off. It's really bizarre. All right, let me check that antenna. I'm really nervous about that. It does say it's connected. Yeah, it says connected, so I'm gonna go with it. Let's turn ourselves all the way to the horizon now. Just really crank this up. Every time I tap a button for turning, it does that. All right, about 12K is good enough. That's good. We want to put these solar panels out, so we'll just go ahead and say extend all solar, I guess. There we go. Nice. Obviously, this is excessive, but we're also going to be using these to power the base itself for a while. Until I get a power module there, which I don't know if I'll need it because I'm not manufacturing material kits, so I'm not sure I'll need it. But we are going to manufacture, you know, life support resources on Eve, and that might require more solar energy than what these can provide. I'm also going to need I'm basically planning on putting the same module I had down here to Eve as well, but I'm just going to build it on the surface. So we are going to need to manufacture something, I guess. Man, oh man, this is going to be complicated. I might have to have manufacturing at every base anyway, just so that I can do stuff like that. I don't know, man. Either way, we're going to go to the apoaps here. Add maneuver, circularize, tell the flight computer to do its thing. There you go. And it's just a matter of sitting back and letting that happen. And then we're going to take the other ones that we just launched, the satellite network one and the planet. We're going to take all of them, all three that we've just launched here. And we're going to send them towards Kerbin in a way that gets us a rendezvous with Eve. So pretty pumped about that. Let's just go ahead and let you guys watch and enjoy. Actually, no, let's not say, hey, sit back and enjoy, because I want to kind of explain what's happening here. So it's actually quite a complicated thing, because Minmus is not really in a very ideal spot to go to Eve. So I had to kind of play around with maneuver nodes for quite a bit here, but I think I got something. So in about a half an hour, I wanted to do it on this pass, but it took me a while to get the maneuver nodes right, and by the time I got them right, the craft has already passed where I wanted it, and so I had to actually tweak it again. But now, I think it's going to be fine. So what we're going to do, in about a half an hour, the satellite craft is going to burn on this point here. And it's going to bring it into an orbit. Hang on. Let's go out a little bit here. It's going to bring it into an orbit that looks kind of like this against Kerbin. It's pretty much a straight line against Kerbin. But however, in the middle of this journey towards Kerbin, we're going to make another burn, okay? Now, this one here that we're doing first is 394 meters per second. This is not going to be like the most efficient way to get to Eve or anything, right? But this is how I have to do it if I want to build my crafts on the surface and basically build things for free and then launch them. In that case, it doesn't necessarily matter how efficient, quote unquote, it is for cost, because I kind of got it for free anyway. So it'd be ideal if Minmus was in a different spot, but it's not. So we're just gonna make do with what it is. What I want to do is I'm gonna take this about 400 meters per second, a little bit under 400 meters per second. We're gonna go this way. Right about this point here, we're then going to make a radial burn as well as a prograde burn to speed ourselves up, but also to kind of move our trajectory a little bit so that we hit roughly the right phase angle of what we need, okay? So once we get that phase angle about how we want it, this is how we would end up. I wanted to get closer to Kerbin to sort of take advantage of that Oberth effect, but there's just nothing I can do. And I've been playing around with this for about 20 minutes. I can't get this maneuver to get the right phase angle and get closer to Kerbin. I think I'd probably have to just wait for Minmus to be more over here to do that, but I don't have that luxury. So we're just going to do it this way. It's fine. It's not efficient, but it is what it is. So at this point here, we're going to make another burn. Now, I don't know exactly what the meters per second, quote unquote, is for this, but I do know that it's 449 prograde, 304 radial. So it's probably somewhere, I would guess, maybe around 500 or so. I have no idea what it's going to be. I haven't thought that much ahead. I'm just playing around with nodes. So once we do that, we'll get kicked out at roughly the right angle. And I did have to play around with a little bit, like to go normal a little bit here on this, just to kind of, or anti-normal here, just to kind of get that angle to be right. As we scroll out, this maneuver ends up getting us in an orbit that zings us around and gets us relatively close to Eve here, just about 100 days after we leave, okay? 100 days from now, really. So we're going to get through here, but it doesn't quite get us where we want to be, right? It's very close. It gets our encounter very close, but doesn't quite get it. So third maneuver, mid-travel, we're going to adjust it again. And this time we're going about, I would guess, maybe 120, 130 or so meters per second. We're going to go anti-radial, and we're also going to go a little bit more prograde and a little bit more normal, but that's going to get us the encounter we're looking for, okay? And that encounter is pretty good. Let me go ahead and focus on Eve. Doing that little burn there gets us to come right in like, hold on, wait for it. There we go. It gets us to come right in with Eve just like this. Cool. And our periapsis on this is 154. I could go a little bit more. I could go a little bit closer. And if I want to tweak it later, I totally can. Once we're in the middle of things, I'll probably tweak it later. But for now, 154. Okay? And then we just take and go ahead and burn from there to get our maneuver to get captured. Now, I probably could move this maneuver to be right on the periaps. Probably could. And if I do that, it's going to move it a little bit. It moved it where I didn't want it, actually. I kind of wanted it back where it was. Darn it. That was a mistake. Maybe we move it. Maybe we move it again. Maybe it'll change. Let me move it back. There we go. I want it to be about like this because what I'm hoping for... Nope, it's not right. Just move it back. Move back, move back, move back. I'm going to have to redo it again. Darn it, I had it and I moved it. Anyway, what I'm hoping for is that the periaps, I'm going to play around with this a little bit, but I'm hoping that the periaps ends up being, or I'm sorry, the apoaps ends up being right in line with Gilly. Okay, because that's the moon. And we need to get a network around Gilly too. So if I can get the apoaps to be right in line with Gilly, then I can adjust this inclination as well. And then we'll have a satellite network hub, or we'll have our main craft that has all the satellites on it. It will be in a really eccentric orbit around Eve. But the really cool part about that is I can release satellites timed with Gilly's orbit, and just sort of get that right. Eventually, you might even get an encounter with Gilly by doing that, which would also be good because I don't have to launch the satellites all the way out that way. And since we're close by Eve already and captured, once we get the satellites dropped off around Gilly, then we can use the main thrusters on this bigger craft and get ourselves in an orbit that's attuned for getting the network around Eve too. So there's a lot of things going on here, and there's a lot of like little tiny maneuvers along the way. But I've over-engineered this a bit, so we have a lot of delta V. Namely, we have a total of 6,300 in the whole craft, but this stage that we're doing right here has 2,480. So the rest of this delta V is the satellites itself, but this is 2,480. And it doesn't take us 2,480 to do all this, so we'll be fine. The other crafts that are going to launch too, they have about 3,000 in them as well, so it's going to be fine. But yeah, just don't take this as an example of the best way to get there. Just take this as an example of what I'm going to do from going from Minmus to Eve if when Minmus is in this particular spot. So I'll play around with this, get this right, but then we're going to launch and do this maneuver. So there are actually 5 maneuvers to execute for these 3 crafts. 2 of the crafts have one maneuver here at Minmus and then another one to correct themselves at Kerbin. The other craft, the one with the logistics, the last one I'm launching here, that one actually only has a single maneuver, which is kind of weird. It's able to get to Eve in one big maneuver. I probably could have done them all the same. I didn't really plan the maneuvers out like with a lot of depth, right? Probably could have done them all more efficiently, like I said, but because they're over-engineered, as long as they can get the job done, I'm cool with it. And the getting the job done part is what I have the biggest question on, and that's a big question mark because, like I said before, the remote tech is not remembering what I tell it to do. Even going back and forth between these 2 crafts, which I did end up doing these maneuvers 2 separate sittings, but like these crafts are not remembering things. Things like do the maneuver. I had to actually tell the full satellite craft here to do it twice. The logistics module didn't remember which part I wanted to control from, so when it was going to do its maneuver, it was actually turned the wrong way. And this is all like really worrying me right now, because if these modules do not act like I intend them to act, well, I'm going to have a pretty bad time. In addition to that, the logistics module, as it's doing its maneuver here, it actually it doesn't get a connection. It's so far away from Kerbin that the Communitron 32 that's on it actually cannot connect to the Kerbin satellites. And I had a mini panic moment here because I was kind of like thinking at the periapse, you're totally going to be able to do this, right? And it couldn't. And I had a little bit of a panic moment, but luckily, and luck is with me, I guess, today, Moon is aligned properly to where we can pass right by it and we can actually get close enough to the moon to re-establish a signal with Kerbin, and that's going to allow us to tell it to do its final maneuver near Eve. Otherwise, this thing was just going to go whew and be gone. So yeah, that's just really, really lucky. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you today. 3 crafts to Eve. And the next time we go to Eve will be a manned mission. Everything will be established and set up there. These 2 modules will be down on the surface by then, and all the satellites will have a full connection. That will be fun, and I look forward to that in not the next video, of course, but in the future. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like this video, give it a thumbs up. You can leave me a comment down below. I always read the comments on my channel, and I love reading all of them. If any of you out there have been wondering where the hell I've been for the last month, I've been doing a lot of live streaming on Twitch. In fact, in December, I streamed nearly 200 hours. It has been so much fun. It's been a blast. It's kind of my new thing. I'm not giving up YouTube, and I'm certainly not giving up on this series, but I've been doing a lot more live streaming on Twitch lately. If you guys are interested in a really cool live show, including Kerbal Space Program Realism Overhaul, which is happening over there too, take a look at the link in the description, and go ahead and follow me on Twitch. I don't think you'll be disappointed. My name is Charlie. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.